Alright, so here we are. I went ahead and ordered all the cases and grips I can find on Amazon.ca, which I will be giving you guys my first impressions about. And after I get a chance to test them out properly, I'll give you guys my top picks in a future video. So with that being said, sit back, relax, and let me help you decide on what to get. So let's go. Names for everything will be right over here. Starting off with the silicone cases, and specifically this one right here. Again, the name is right there. So this one specifically, honestly looks really good. It looks very clean, and it has everything covered all around the corners, except for one problem. Although it does have a pretty decent grip, and it doesn't take away from the profile. I mean, it does make it a bit thicker, but not that much. It really doesn't add a whole lot to the experience of the actual right thumbstick. It's still crammed. And not only that, but it's kind of very annoying depending on how you grab your Switch. The SD card slot opening is way too big, and it causes this kind of really weird rubbing that doesn't feel very nice. And as you can see right here, it's kind of a sharp corner, which is not cool. And again, I'll test it thoroughly, and I'll have a future video where I'll give you guys my top recommended picks. And I do want to mention some of these cases are very hard to put in, so I'll make sure to mention that with the rest of the actual cases. So for this one right here, it's actually very hard. And one more thing I want to mention about this one, and that will be the fact that this one comes with a screen protector. And the level of hardness to actually install it, it is actually on the harder side. It will require some finesse to get it in there properly, so just keep that in mind. And moving on to something that's very similar, this one comes with 2 tempered glass screen protectors, which is a pretty great deal. And the installation process here, it's much easier since the material is a bit softer. And here is what it looks like. As you can see, it's also very similar. While the previous one has more of a leather texture, this one is mostly smooth and it's got these ridges right here. And overall, this one does actually feel pretty good in the hand, and I actually have no complaints whatsoever. And that is because the SD card slot is actually covered. And to be honest, you're not going to be replacing your SD card constantly. You're going to buy a big one, install it, and forget about it. So that's not really an issue. And again, it makes a big difference to the ergonomics compared to the other one. And overall, I can actually recommend this one since it does give you a nice grip. Now, when it comes to the right analog control, it's slightly better, but not a whole lot better than without the case itself. And here we have another grip. This one is kind of lightweight, and it has that cutout as well for the SD card. Not only is using a much softer material, but it also doesn't have that big of a bulge on the back, so it kind of keeps it a bit more portable. And the installation process is typical, and as you can see, it doesn't look all that great since the material is so soft, and really, it's kind of a cheap case. You can see that the cutouts are not very clean. It's not perfectly centered. Overall, in terms of grips and protection, I probably don't recommend it. Honestly, this one is probably not worth getting. And that is because we have something that is a bit more sturdier, and it's also much harder to install, very similar to the first one we have taken a look at. As you can see, it's extremely hard to install. Now, this one does feel much better. It is definitely much sturdier, and it really feels good in the hand. It's very smooth. Of course, you're going to pick up a bunch of fingerprints, but it's transparent, and this is what it kind of looks like. You got cutouts for everything. And this one is not a grip, it's more of a case, but you could consider it as a grip since it does add a little bit of thickness, so that does help with the actual ergonomics. So overall, this one does feel pretty good as well, and I can probably recommend it. But again, for the installation process, it's a very tight one. Now, if you're looking for something a bit more grippy, less of a fingerprint magnet, and has a bit more function, then this thing might be it. Except it's kind of weird. So this is a protective case that's also a grip, and it also has 2 game card slots. You put them in, then you install your Switch, and you want to change your game, well, guess what you have to do? You got to actually go ahead and open up the whole case and pull them out from inside. And that's not an easy process. It's annoying. It's going to damage your Switch eventually. No. I probably don't even recommend adding any games in there. But as a protective case and a grip, this thing is actually pretty great. It's pretty fantastic. I really like how it feels. The grips right here definitely help with ergonomics, and there's a pretty decent improvement when it comes to the right analog control. In terms of portability, it does double up the thickness, but other than that, it is a case that will do the job when it comes to a little grip and some protection when you throw it on the tables. Oh, and the installation process, I would give it a medium hardness. It's not terrible. And now we have the good old rubber kind of case. It's a nice flimsy one. So here's what it looks like. It looks pretty okay, and it's one of the really flexible ones. It of course does have cutouts for everything. It looks okay from the back, it looks okay from the top, and it does make the top buttons much easier to click, which is very nice actually. And the same thing goes for the home, the screenshot, and the plus and minus buttons on the top. But again, when you look at the front, it has these gaps right here. And these gaps, not only they're terrible when it comes to the comfort level, because you kind of feel it sometimes. Not only it doesn't look all that clean, but at the same time, if you ever end up with dust particles under the case itself, it will actually scratch up your Switch, and that's not cool. So I'd probably recommend staying away from this type of case. And now for something a bit more interesting, which is an actual grip. So this one, in terms of looks, doesn't look all that great, honestly, from the front. It really doesn't cover this area right here, and it doesn't add a whole lot of protection. But what it does have is a giant gap for the ventilation hole. Not only that, but it also extends the actual volume up and down buttons, as well as the power button. Now the power button here is actually much harder to press, so take that as you will. It might be a good thing, might be a bad thing, but I find that to be a bit annoying. You gotta press really hard to get the power button to press. And for the speaker holes, they're actually very small. I don't think that will be an issue, but a quick look at the back is where all the action is. First of all, the grips here have a texture, It's kind of rough on your hands. It doesn't feel all that nice. It does add some grip, but honestly, it's not that comfortable. Now, the other thing that it has is actually a kickstand, which is actually really nice. It's a nice 45-degree angle, I believe, and it does look pretty good. It's really solid. It's not going anywhere. And if you have a gamepad with you or a Switch Pro controller, then this thing would be pretty cool, but we will know for sure in my top picks video. And now for an actual grip that does the job. Installation process, straightforward. You just clip it in. And honestly, this is so far the most comfortable grip out of everything we have taken a look at so far. It does give you a really nice grip right here. And since the grip is so long, it does provide you with a perfect or much better improvement on the right analog stick. This would be the optimal way to actually play with the Switch right here. And yes, I know the Satisfy grips are out there and they're still working on it, which they should be releasing very soon on Amazon. But that being said, until then, this would be my go-to grip until they actually release it. And it's actually nice and compact. It should be cheaper. I'm not exactly sure. And I imagine this would definitely make it on my top list. Yeah, it's so much better. I mean, this is like holding an Xbox controller now. It's just really nice. Counters for everything. The bottom SD card slot is also covered. There's a big gap right here to allow the heat to dissipate, which is nice. And now we can actually go ahead and take a look at some Hori stuff. Starting off with this hard shell right here that comes with a regular screen protector. It is not a tempered glass one, it is a regular film one, which is honestly not bad as well if you just want to protect your Switch from getting scratched up. And at the same time, it should stop you from having a lip when you install a thick tempered glass screen protector. So anyways, let's go ahead and put it on. But first, some unpeel therapy. Being a hard shell has its benefits and downsides. Now, I have used these cases before on my PSPs many times before, and I can tell you guys what to expect. But first, let's put the Switch in. Place the Switch, nice and snug, and clip everything back into place. Alright, so first impressions, how does it look? Well, it looks pretty interesting. Everything now has a reflection when you look at it, and it has this kickstand in the back as well. It'll probably snap if you put too much pressure on it, but it does give you a kickstand when you need one the most. Now, in terms of grip, it's pretty okay. I wouldn't say it's the best, but again, the SD card slot is still empty right here, so you kind of feel this edge right here. What could go wrong? Well, first of all, it's a hard case. So when you actually use the Switch over time, eventually, putting it on a table, putting it in your pockets, playing around with it, grabbing it, whatever you do, not only all those actions, but also the dust particles that are inside will eventually start scratching inside the case itself. So the body here will eventually get scratched up all around the main contact points. It will also affect the glass that is around the screen itself. As you can see, the case here is inside the border of the actual glass display, or should I say the plastic piece on the outside. Now, this thing will help, but eventually when you actually take out the case, you'll most likely start seeing scuff marks around the frame here, so just keep that in mind. Next up, we have the official Nintendo Switch pouch, as well as the officially licensed Hori pouch. And we're going to go ahead and get started with the white one right here. So this one comes with a screen protector. It has a kind of a smoother texture on the front here, and it opens up like so with a high-tech zipper action. And inside, it's a simple pouch. It's got 8 memory card slots. You can toss in your Vita games in there if you want. And a little smaller pouch right here to put your charging cable. And yeah, you put it in, and you close it up. So this one doesn't add a whole lot of heft to the actual Switch. It keeps it nice and compact. Overall, I honestly don't think I'll be using this too much, although it does look pretty okay. This eventually will pick up a whole lot of dirt, and it will eventually start yellowing, so I probably don't recommend getting this one too much. That being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the Hori one. This one does add some gaps to the actual triggers, and I believe this one can handle a case of some sort. And as you can see, it's a nice, vibrant yellow color. And I think this color actually matches the yellow Switch very much. So as you can see, the Switch here does have some spacing inside, so you can definitely put a case in there, and I'll be testing out the different cases they can fit in here. And pulling down the flap right here, we can see that it can house 10 different game cards. And finally, we have a bigger pouch right here. We can go ahead and put your charging cable and maybe your microfiber cleaning cloth. But it also has a ton of cushioning for the screen. So this part right here is not only a game card slot, but it also has a nice cushion with like kind of a microfiber cloth kind of texture. So when you put it in, it kind of cleans up your display while you're on the go. And that's actually about it. So this case, it does have a whole lot of space. I would definitely recommend it over the official one. Alright, so here we are one day later. Let's see if this thing was worth waiting for. First of all, it is a flexible material, and it's got this transparent plate on the back, which does remind me a whole lot of those phone UAG cases, which I think, again, look pretty awesome. So yeah, armored look. The texture on the back looks really nice, feels pretty good on the hands. Cutouts for everything, including the SD card slot. The same goes for the top, with the addition of the raised buttons on the top, which can be really helpful. So with that being said, let's go ahead and pop it in. And what can I say? Installation process, easy as that, no troubles. It doesn't feel like you're going to break the console while trying to put it in. And yeah, on the front, it looks really clean. Not a whole lot to complain about. I usually prefer an arch right here to clean up the aesthetics, but it's fine like this. And that's actually a good thing for 2 reasons. One reason is that it makes it easier to install. And the second reason is that it doesn't get in the way of the actual usage of the buttons. Now let's take a look at the back. And yeah, it looks really nice. I have to say, not a whole lot to complain about, but let's see how it feels. Again, this is what it looks like on the bottom, and let's see how easy the buttons are to use. Well, those buttons are perfect. In fact, this case actually makes these buttons much easier to press than without it, which is great. And I can see that the headphone jack right here has a nice big gap, so if you do have a thick cable, you can still use it with this thing. Although we had taken a look at 15 different cases and grips, this search is again far from over, because I actually have about 3 more coming in the mail. But until then, I do have a pretty decent amount of stuff that I can recommend. One of them being this case right here. Not only it's a grip, it's not a full grip, but it's a pretty good grip. And at the same time, it does protect your switch, it makes the buttons easier to click, and it's a pretty easy case to pop in and out, because you definitely don't want to damage your switch with your own case. And there's actually one last thing to test out, and that would be to see if this Hori grip can fit in the Hori case and be closed properly. Well, it seems like, yes, you can actually do that. I'm going to be testing that even more, but until then, if you're looking for a case, get the Hori switch case right here, and if you want a protective grip, then get this thing. Now, if you want a full grip that will enhance your experience by a whole lot, although it's a cheap one, and there are better ones that are coming out very soon, this one I can definitely recommend. And with that said, guys, the whole list for everything you saw, including the switch if you're interested in getting one for yourself, and supporting the channel, will be in the description down below. So with all that being said, thank you all for watching, stay tuned for the follow-up video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, everyone.